Okay. Hello. My name is Muhammad Hafiz Ainuddin bin SHAMSUN Alam.
And my name is AMAN bin AZLAN.
We are a student from College Professional Mara Sri Iskandar.
And today we are going to conduct an interview for our assignment on the subject Pragmatics in Intercultural Communication.
Okay. Before we begin, may we ask you to introduce yourself a little bit and about your background, your education, and where like the you used to live in or something like that.
All right, awesome. Hi, my name is John. I am a first year in Monash University. I'm doing my Bachelor's of Computer Science uh, in Monash University in Sunway. I live in Subang Jaya, Selangor. So yeah, I'm glad to be here for the interview.
All right, so we're just gonna dive right into the interview, right? So for the first question, as someone who is part of a culture that may be a minority in your university, have you ever come across any language barriers while studying?
Language barriers, yeah, I would say so. So in my university, majority of the students are of Chinese ethnicity. So the students and the staff as well. So there's bound to be language barriers that come across. So a few instances that I can think of is during one of my classes, I have a discrete math unit where my lecturer, who is Chinese, would sometimes say some bits in Chinese to add context to the topic that he's trying to present about. So, because of this often distracted me when I'm trying to pay attention to the topic because of the different languages that I do not understand, such as Chinese. And other than that, like in group assignments, I have this ethics unit that I did recently, where in the group I have this person who is from China, and he's not so proficient in English, which was kind of a big language barrier for the both of us in trying to communicate with each other. And so because of that, there was many miscommunication and language barriers that were often caught with that. So due to the diversity that we have here in Monash, uh, language barriers are expected, and you got to find ways to try and go through that with other ways of communicating with each other.
Do you consider it like a struggle, this like language barrier, struggling in studying?
At first I would say so, yeah, because when you're not used to talking to other people with different backgrounds and with different levels of proficiency in certain languages, it's definitely much it poses some difficulty when trying to communicate with each other, especially in assignments where you have to work together, like group assignments, for example. So because of that, there were some difficulties at first, but you eventually have to find other ways into uh, traversing those types of language barriers.
Okay. Moving on. Like, do you often communicate with your colleague in direct style or indirect style? Like, can you share the example of or like your experience?
So I feel like for communication styles such as direct and indirect, it really depends on who I'm talking to,
Yes.
and depends on what their level of proficiency is. Like again, so say for example, the teammate that I have for the ethics unit in the group assignment, where the person from China has less proficiency in English. So because of that, I would say that a direct style would be better suited for people like him, where they do not need to think much of how I'm trying to communicate or convey my message. So, in comparison to someone who is proficient in English, uh, it would be better off to use an indirect approach in order to potentially not how to say to potentially not uh, offend them, right? And also to give context to how I'm trying to convey my message or trying to correct what they are trying to do. So, for example, in that in that same group assignment, I had the person from China where it was preferable that I communicated to him in a direct style, where I just gave him the what instructions, just set in stone and straight to the point. Whereas I have another teammate where he is proficient in English, and also he knows a lot about the topics and units and all that. So an indirect approach where I would say that if he has one idea which may not be the best of interest, I would say like maybe we can look into the pros and cons of how this approach can work in our assignment, for example. So rather than saying that we shouldn't do this because I don't like it, for example.
See. So we're going to continue our next question. Have you ever used humor in intercultural communication to overcome the challenges in like talking to your colleagues? Like your own cultural humor you use on the foreigners there.
Um, well, for me, my personal culture, because once again, Monash is so diverse, right? Uh, the humor that I use tend to be more not so towards culture per se. Because if I do use that, then they just might not understand the context behind it thoroughly, like we would as Malaysians or as certain races or backgrounds. So because of that, I tend to use humor in a way that most people can understand. Like for example, context given from the internet or recent news or trends or whatever. So, but in terms of culturally culture based humor, I tend to not go with that.
But like let's say the humor that you used to use back in like high school, do you still apply that humor when you are in university now?
I would say that the style of it, I would say it's going. I translate it over into a more standardized humor where um, most people can understand. So like the most I would go to is like say that the uh, group assignment that I had, the one that I was talking about previously, for the first meeting, because we were not familiar with each other so much, and everyone came from a diverse background and everyone was of different ethnicity and all that. So the joke or the humor that I came up with was I told them that uh, the group is so diverse that it looks like a UN meeting, a United Nations meeting.
Yeah.
So that's the most that I would go to in terms of culture. In terms of bringing out Malaysian culture, or I'm an Indian, so Indian culture. Uh, for humor, I tend to not go to that because I have eventually I'll have to explain myself and the context behind the jokes. So, so yeah.
Okay, for the following question, like, do you have a bubble that marks a territory between yourself and others in order to avoid discomfort in your intercultural communication? Like, for example, you put a barrier to someone.
So is this like can I get a bit more context to this? So is it like personal space? Is it?
Yes, something like that.
So in terms of personal space, I would say that I do set boundaries when meeting with new people. Like I tend to not be so close to each other. I would be a bit more hesitant to be very communicative, I would say. So like the most I would go to is possibly just a handshake and
Mm.
just trying to ice break with each other. Other than that, I tend to not go too into deep their lives when I'm first meeting them, obviously, just so that we don't get too uncomfortable with sharing certain information that we do not want to at that moment. So yeah.
So yeah, would you say you have like a certain circle of friends that you are more comfortable with in your university?
Uh, well, in terms of like race or backgrounds, uh, I would say that there is certain hesitancy when I'm trying to communicate with people who are from different backgrounds or international students per se. Uh, because you tend to stick together with people who you're familiar. So like Malaysians, so we can have some added familiarity with each other. So with international students, I try my best to communicate with them and talk to them, but because of like language barriers and also just unfamiliarity of where we've come from and you know what context we have on what we can talk about, because of the lack of substance, it just doesn't work out. But I still try to be friendly with all of them. So yeah.
See. Alright. So moving on to our fifth question is, have you ever had any conflicts with any of your colleagues? And do you mind
All right.
providing us some examples of those conflicts?
Yeah, so conflicts will always happen in like group assignments where we have to work together and come up with solutions to uh, how we're going to complete the assignment, right? So in the recent group assignment that I did, which is the ethics unit, which I mentioned earlier, so the person from China, because of the language barriers and miscommunication, uh, we we uh, we thought of having a meeting on a Thursday, but he misinterpreted as Friday. So because of that, he couldn't attend the meeting, and he was gone black for that day. He was offline, so we had no way of contacting him that day, which made the rest of us really stressed because of the time constraints that we had for the assignment. So I would say that due to those cultural backgrounds and miscommunication, that conflict happened.
I see. So, like, for that certain, like, for conflicts that you have with your colleagues and all, how do you as an individual approach the conflict? Do you approach it through direct approach or like indirect approach?
So returning to that example that I gave for the previous question,
Mm,
uh, so because of the lack of time that we had for the assignment, and also because he's from China, so the type of communication that I uh, went for to him was a direct approach where I tried calling him and I tried asking where he was, but he still didn't answer because he was offline until the evening. So because of that, I had to find other ways as to how we could potentially solve this issue. Because if he is not cooperating, then it would ruin the dynamics of the whole team and would potentially just bring the team morale down. So I had to find other ways. So I contacted the teacher for our class and asked her what we could do, but she just suggested us to wait out and see what reply he would come up with. And after he did, he profusely apologized for not attending the meeting because it wasn't exactly his fault. We It was miscommunication. So um, because of that, we were able to be friends again, and we were able to continue the group assignments as per usual. So yeah.
I see. So basically, like you are preferably to confront the conflict head to head, or like not like keep quiet and then just wait for an outcome to be a positive outcome. So you confront it head to head something.
Yeah, exactly. Because for that group assignment, I was assigned as leader. So, as the leader, you have to be very proactive in the decisions that you make. So, and also in just team decisions and making sure that the team is together and the morale is high and all that. So in order to make sure that everything is functioning properly, we have to ensure that there are no mishaps or any miscommunications that occur between the team and the teammates.
I see. Okay, moving on to the next question. Like, do you believe that gender and ethnicity influence how they handle conflict?
Um, I would say so still in 2024 because of stereotypes
Mm,
that are in the back of our heads. Even though we try to suppress them, it will still come up, and there would be bias in terms of certain genders or certain races when it comes to conflicts with peers in schools or classmates.
I see. Okay, moving on to the last question. In your university, has there been any like stereotyping towards gender and ethnicity? Or like you have said it earlier, right? Maybe you could provide a scenario or example.
Sure thing. So I would say that luckily in Monash, everyone tends to be friendly towards each other. Like we try our best not to downplay someone based on how they look or where they came from. However, um, some stuff are bound to happen. So, like for me personally, I've had people come up to me and say that uh, because I am how I look, they thought that I was not proficient in English, or uh, I wasn't that uh, high up in the standards. So you know, it's just stereotypes that was built upon when from possibly previous encounters. Other than that, um, in terms of like uh, very harsh stereotyping, I would say that in Monash there isn't much, just very small things that may lead up to something bigger in the future, but um, we try to minimize that as much as possible.
See, in general, do you think you've ever been stereotyped because of your ethnicity?
Yeah, like I've said so earlier, because of how I look and how I am, like I'm an Indian, so people will tend to think that my level of proficiency in English is not so high. So because of that, they try to cater to what they might think my proficiency in English is. So in
Mm,
terms of communication, they would be they would not be so diplomatic, I would say, or not so high level in terms of proficiency. So yeah.
how about gender? What do you think about gender? Do you think there are like discrimination in Monash about gender? Like men can do certain things, but women can't do.
Um, I I would say it depends on the individual. It's not as not everyone in Monash has stereotypes against women, for example, right? But
Mm,
uh, from what I've seen, like in group assignments, for example, uh, the males tend to stick together for
mm,
group assignments, and they tend to not have women in their teams.
mm.
Whereas, and also vice versa, the women would also female would also tend to just group up together and form their own group for group assignments, and that's just due to familiarity and not needing to communicate with the opposite gender. So yeah.
See. Okay, so do you think in your university that there is discrimination between gender? Like men can do things better than women, or like vice versa?
um I wouldn't say in terms of men can do things better than women. I wouldn't say that is the stereotyping that the most of the students some of the students have in Monash. But I'll say it's just in terms of familiarity. So like, you know, males would tend to work together with males for a certain problem, and females would tend to stick together with other females, right? So I feel like because of this reluctance to work with the opposite gender, this could pose potential problems in the future, such as in the workplace, where they have to work together, right, as a team with opposite genders, and they cannot just choose who they get to work with, right? And uh, because of this, and also due to the fact that Malaysia is a multicultural society with different races and coming from different backgrounds, uh, the reluctance to work together, despite where the person or how the person looks like or where the person has come from, that is a problem that uh, we as Malaysians need to fix uh, in order to progress as a society.
I see. Like you said earlier, like men preferably to group with men and women with women, right? As for yourself, do you think like most of your experience in doing assignment, like most of your group work, is it just all men or all women and you alone the men or mix?
Um, so far, from the group assignments that I've had, sorry, from the group assignments that I've had, they've all been male. But that's again due to the fact that if given the choice, males would choose teams who are just made up of males, and females would just stick together with the females. So because of that, I do not want to be the odd one out in the female group.
I
So
see.
I just tend to just join the male groups where it's already been formed. So yeah.
Uh,
But I wouldn't be uh I would also love to invite females also to the team.
I see.
It doesn't matter to me. It just depends on uh what their level is at in the unit and how they can provide to the team as a member.
I see. So I think that's all of our questions for this interview.
Thank you so much again, John, for wanting to help us for this assignment.
All right. So
Awesome.
I
Thanks.
think we'll keep in touch. Thank you so much, John.
Bye.
Sure thing. All right. Bye bye.